Molly, welcome back to my YouTube channel. If you haven't already clicked that subscribe button, please make sure you do, as it is very much appreciated. So this here is the car that I drive every day. It is a Polo GTI, it's a 9N3, it's a 2006 plate, and they're a 1.8, 150 brake horsepower. In May 2005, the Mark IV Polo was launched, and in 2006, they launched the GTI, which of course is this Polo just here. So what is a Polo GTI 9N3? Well, it is a 1.8 litre petrol turbocharged, 150 brake horsepower, which I think is pretty decent for a car of this size and of course of its age. 0 to 60 wise, I've read from several different sources. Somewhere says 7.7 seconds, somewhere else says 8.2 seconds. So we'll just stick to the 150 brake horsepower. Now, driving wise, I'd say, of course, you know me for driving a Mini. Now, I think this handles really well. You like to take the corners in a Mini, and I think this can take the corners really pretty well. Even though it's a 1.8 petrol, it has only got a 5-speed gearbox. So I feel like it really would benefit from having 6 gears, if I'm completely honest. My Polo is pretty standard specification and modification wise. However, from the factory, it does have one optional extra, which was the 6-disc CD changer. Very fancy, I know. So standard specification wise, they come with GTI badges front and rear, the honeycomb grille with the red edging, which you expect to see on the GTIs. That then continues on the interior, so you get that leather steering wheel with the red stitching on the gear knob and the handbrake stick, continues on the seats, and you get a more bucketed style seats. Only downside, of course, to that is they do wear a lot easier. It is cloth, so it does wear a lot more as well. You get that lovely GTI emblem at the top of the seats, and then the red stitching continues again on the seat belts as well. Now, even though the car is relatively standard, there are a few tweaks that I have done to it, one of them being the red calipers being in slightly different shades. These are the standard 16-inch alloys, but they originally came in silver and I've had them sprayed. They were originally a gunmetal grey, but you probably agree they've gone a bit more of a blowy colour now. But they are the standard alloys that came on the Polo GTI. I swapped these grills at the front here to a honeycomb grille, as I think I suited the style of the car at the front better. So interior wise, you may have noticed I haven't got the standard radio system. I've actually upgraded to an Apple CarPlay system, which if you've driven brand new cars before and you've got used to having Apple CarPlay or Android Auto, if you're a strange person that has an Android, that's a joke by the way, you'll know how much more convenient it is having Apple CarPlay. So when I went from having a newer car that had Apple CarPlay, at the time I had a company car, then I went to this. I didn't even have Bluetooth, I didn't even have DAB or anything like that, which isn't a big deal, but things like Bluetooth for even taking phone calls, you can't even make a phone call. So I had like a little FM transmitter in the 12-volt socket, and I probably had that for about 18 months. And then I decided to upgrade to the Apple CarPlay. It's an Alpine radio system, pretty simple to install, and then it fitted in the slot that the radio came out of, so there's no cutting or anything like that involved. I can simply just slot my old radio back in, so I don't have to worry about causing any damage that way. And all you do is trail the wire through, and I've got the wire just here, which of course is quite convenient because it charges my phone while it's plugged in as well. Practicality wise, they were available in both a 3 and a 5-door. Arguably, I'd say you see more 3 doors than you do 5 doors. When I originally was looking at Polo GTIs, I was looking at a silver 5-door, but I missed out on that one and ended up with this. But I'm actually really glad, as the condition and the ownership history of the car, I'm really glad that this is one that I ended up with, as it's been really well looked after, and I do really like to look after my cars. But going back to practicality wise, it's got a decent sized boot, I'd say, for a 3-door hatchback. It's 270 litres, which, just compare that to more modern cars. I have a Mini F56, they've only got 211 litres of boot space. So what about ownership costs? Now, I've already mentioned I've had the car just over 3 years, and reliability wise, I'd say it's really, really reliable. I've only had a couple of minor issues, but they've been quite easily resolved, and of course it is a 2006 plate car, so it is coming up to 20 years old, so it has been really, really reliable, to be honest. Now, as you'd expect of a car of this age with a 1.8 petrol engine, it isn't the most fuel efficient. You can get mid-30s, 40s on a longer journey. Day to day, you're probably getting about 28 miles per gallon, maybe a little bit better, depending, of course, what kind of traffic you're in. Due to the age of the car, I do tend to put Supreme unleaded in the car, just because you hear some quite nasty stories about putting regular unleaded in. So I do tend to spend a little bit more on fuel than maybe a regular driver would, just because I put the Supreme fuel in, which of course is more expensive. Due to the age, it fits in that category where the tax group is based on the CO2 emissions. Now, I will say it is an EU4, so it can go in the low emission zones. If you're not from the UK, then you might not know, but there's certain towns or cities that have low emission zones, which means if your car is not of a certain EU category, based on the fuel, the engine and the age, and generally you can check this online, then you will have to pay a charge. Normally it's about £12 to £16, and it varies different areas. So different areas of the UK, different towns will have them in place. So for example, Birmingham has one in place, but my car can drive in the low emission zone in Birmingham. But for example, diesel, which was newer, but because it wasn't a Euro 6, it was only a Euro 5, that couldn't drive in the low emission zones. As you expect, of course, from a 1.8 petrol, and the age of the car, it is in a tax bracket which is based upon the CO2 emissions and the age of the car. So it is quite expensive to tax. I think it's about £360 a year. Might even be a little bit more than that to tax now. So it is quite expensive to tax. And then ownership wise, of course, is parts. So as I say, I've not had to replace many parts on this vehicle at all. It has been really quite reliable. But even general things like servicing parts don't tend to be that expensive. I know it is a Volkswagen, but you can buy parts online if it's a certain age where if anything breaks, you can buy stuff from a breaker. So you do benefit from that. So I wouldn't say that it's a massive amount of cost to be able to replace parts on this car at all. Like any car, you can look online and look at common faults. I've listed a few, but again, a lot of them were solved a lot earlier on in the car's lifetime. So it's just general wear and tear parts really. I bought this car originally because for the budget that I wanted something that was fairly nippy. I wanted something that was small hatchback wise, and I also wanted something that looked pretty good. So you'll know from the previous cars that I've had and done walkarounds on, I tend to have minis, but I have previously had Volkswagen Polos as well. I tend to prefer a German brand. For the budget I had at the time, I just really liked the look of the Polo GTI. I'd had a couple of minis, so I thought I'd try something completely different. So that's how I ended up with this Polo GTI. So to sum it up, I'm really happy with my Polo GTI. I can't see myself changing it anytime soon. If I'm honest, I think if I keep it long enough, it might become a bit more of a future classic, but I'd probably have to keep it a long time. I know if you look at the 6 N3s, which are the model before mine, the price of them have kept up for those that have been kept in good condition. And with these, you are struggling now to find ones that haven't been modified. As mentioned, due to the budget, it is pretty easy for people to modify them due to the cost and upkeep isn't huge. You'll get a few people that are younger that tend to be their first car they look at modifying, or there's some out there in the car scene that are really, really good examples of ones that have been modified and look really, really good. So I can't see myself changing it anytime soon, but I also can't see myself going crazy and modifying it and changing it. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already headed over to my channel and had a look at my other videos, please make sure you click the subscribe button, as it is very much appreciated.